Welcome to Lifting the Lid on Technology, a podcast series brought to you by Softsource, an association with New Zealand's leading IT vendors and experts, where we explore opportunities and challenges in the world of IT. My name's Barry White. I'm Virtual CIO Principal Consultant with Softsource. My guest this afternoon is Carlin Diprose, Product Evangelist with HPI. So it's been a challenging year for all of us, and I know working for HP's been one of the global companies innovating in this whole area of workplace and working remotely, and I'm really keen, I guess, to kick things off to hear a little bit about your experience as an employee, and how's it been being part of that global network, and how have HP responded to that and treated you?
Yeah. Well, it's it has been sort of a really crazy last 12 months. For me, I feel incredibly fortunate to be working for a company like HP at a time like this, because I think without sort of the support that we were offered while working fully remotely for a good couple of months, we would have really struggled otherwise. So I mean, I guess in terms of my own personal experience and how I've found it, I mean the first sort of thing that happened when we went into lockdown, because I guess we all started working from home, I think about 2 weeks before New Zealand went into level 4 lockdown. And during that time, like we had opportunities to go into the office and, get, monitors, keyboards, mice, even, office chairs just to get us fully set up. And I think in the first sort of week of working from home, so this was before lockdown, I spent pretty much the whole time just working from the couch. And because that's what I'd been used to, right? I'd probably spent one day a week before sort of all the pandemic stuff happened, one day a week working from home. And, when you're doing that, you do just work from the couch, right? You're chipping away at stuff. And, I might even, have something on the TV in the background just to help sort of relax me. But it's not something that you can do, 5 days a week, just in terms of, how comfortable you are, just down to the way that you're sitting. You're not going to be as productive as possible in that way. So after that first sort of week, I realized, this is not going to work if I continue to do this. So first thing I did was, create a dedicated workspace for myself, in the same way that you would in an office, obviously. So actually, setting up a desk and having dual monitors as well. That was a big difference from just working from my laptop screen. And then all of a sudden, even just having that space where once you move into that space, you're in work mode, and when it's time to have a break, you move away from it, and it just creates that little bit of separation, right? Because otherwise you find that you'll probably end up working a little bit longer into the evening, just because the whole thing is just a little bit more blurred with everything else that you've got going on in terms of, spending time with the family, walking the dog, all of that. So having that dedicated space, taking more scheduled breaks, and even just sitting comfortably upright in a chair, looking at a monitor at the right height. All of these things helped contribute to just, being a lot more productive. And so I guess, that is the setup side of it. Then, of course, there was the whole work culture side of it. And same thing, the first sort of couple of weeks, this was new for everyone. We're all navigating this sort of new landscape. And so, the first couple of weeks, it was a little bit less structured, and then sort of after that first week, particularly once we went into lockdown, because then all of a sudden the entire country is in the same boat as us. From that point onwards, there were much more. For example, we had a weekly scheduled team-wide call that was separate from sort of individual smaller teams within the organization, where we could just to start with, see how everyone was doing. Everyone, if they wanted to, had a chance to, say, I've been up to this week. It's been great, or it hasn't been great, or whatever. And just the keeping up that work culture side of things. And that was one of the sort of the most important things in terms of, not feeling isolated and, separated from the rest of your team. Because I think that is all round the biggest change and biggest obstacle that a lot of people, around, well, not just New Zealand, but around the world found when they suddenly started working from home. How do we maintain, even just not quite the water cooler chat, but, just smaller conversations. And so from there, I even started scheduling coffee dates with certain workmates and everything where, 1 o'clock, hey, let's make a coffee, meet up over Zoom and just have a chat, keep that sort of thing going. So yeah, those were sort of my initial, first experiences with, a sudden massive change. So
I'm just interested, how did they sort of personalize that? Because I know, for, anybody listening to this podcast, HP is a big organisation, global footprint. I've worked for Microsoft, so I know what that's like. But, how did they sort of contextualise that here in New Zealand? Because I know one of the biggest challenges for a lot of companies, particularly here in New Zealand, got relatively small workforces. Resources are kind of, split. And, how did they do that here locally and, say, in Auckland and in New Zealand? Was management kind of reaching out directly, or was it done more on a sort of a global level? Oh,
yeah, definitely. So, in terms of what I was exposed to, what I've seen is separate from, well, not separate, but we've got our New Zealand team and then we've got our wider ANZ team. And so I saw a little bit about how both of I guess communication was ran, between the ANZ team and the New Zealand team. So in terms of, regular weekly catch-ups, so we had a, Friday morning essentially meeting every week. That was driven by the New Zealand team. So Oliver, our country manager, he was the one that sort of really led those team chats and team meetings. And then, on top of that, we also had the ANZ-led one. So specifically for me, I'm part of the category, the PC category team at HP. And so, we had specifically a ANZ PC category, catch-ups and stuff that were run by that leadership team as well.
So from a device and product point of view, and here we are a year later now, I think everybody's got pretty comfortable with the whole kind of virtual meeting side of things. But what lessons or what takeaways have you had from your experience and working with customers as well? And what areas are customers still finding challenging? I mean, what's some of the common threads, particularly, I guess, here in New Zealand, because we read lots of stuff about what's happening in North America. But if we put some context around it in New Zealand, what are some of the common scenarios that you've seen talking to customers that they still find challenging, whether it be from a physical hardware point of view, or whether it be, as you say, some of these cultural things? Because lots of businesses are still working remotely, if not just 2 or 3 days a week. And there are some organisations like Hewlett-Packard and Microsoft and others who have set global policies that people can continue to work from home. So I'm interested in, a year later, what are the lessons?
Yeah. So I guess to start with, we'll stick on sort of the cultural side of things, just because that's what we've been talking about, and then we can talk more about sort of hardware obstacles that everyone's had to overcome. But culturally, there has been a lot of learning in the last 12 months in terms of how do we do this right. There was no playbook before then, so we are really just. For the most part, everyone's just doing trial and error, really. So the first thing that obviously we noticed, and anyone who's probably listening would agree, is it is about finding a balance in terms of even just online conference calls, for example. When we first went into lockdown, there was a lot of them. There was this massive saturation of Zoom calls, and we probably, for the first couple of months, spent, on average, maybe had up to 10 calls a day sort of thing on Zoom that, might all be about an hour long. So, it was about finding that balance, right? And now that we find, even when there are a lot of people that are, working from home, or at least adopting this sort of hybrid model where some people are in the office, some people are at home, and it's constantly changing. It's just about finding that balance where people aren't getting that conference call fatigue, because when you are just constantly on those calls, just back to back to back, which is what was happening for a lot of people for quite a while, you very quickly switch off, and you're not going to retain all of the information that you need. So it is just about finding that balance in terms of, okay, how much time do we want to spend online listening to someone talk, and how much time do we want to spend, not doing that?
So, Carlin, do you think, here we are a year later, and I certainly know from my personal experience that back in the early days, we seemed to just have back-to-back meetings, one on top of the other, almost as if we're trying too hard. Here we are now. We seem to have gone back to more normality, I guess, and certainly I'm having nowhere near the same amount of virtual meetings as I was 12 months ago. Do you feel that the trust levels kind of returned now, and people are just much more comfortable? Overstating that, do you think?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I mean, one thing that I noticed with, particularly, the start of sort of lockdown and everything versus where we are now is, I guess, when everyone got sort of initially set up to work remotely from home, at least from my experience, and, I'm sure it's different for some, but did feel like when everyone started working from home, actually getting set up with the basics like video conferencing, all that sort of thing, because for a lot of people, it was their first time doing these things. But the fact that everyone was in the same boat made it ridiculously easy. The fact that video conferencing was sort of the most effective and easy way of doing it because, everyone was set up to do it, meant that, because of that, there was that sort of oversaturation and, we can schedule a call. Of course, why not? It's so easy now. And because I think, prior to that, because everyone wasn't on the same page, you didn't know, oh, cool, can we get set up to do a Teams meeting? Can we do a Zoom meeting? Some of these end users might not even have that platform set up on their device, et cetera, et cetera. So there was that sort of uneven playing field before, whereas now it very much is that even playing field, right? Everyone is set up to do a video call. Everyone knows how to make sure that their webcam is working now, their microphone is working, and a lot of people previously didn't. I think it was sort of that almost initial excitement of, this is so easy to do. Let's just, have video calls for everything. Going back to what you were saying about just general overall trust, right? Is I think, at the start, there was a lot of checking in, what's happening, how you going, what have you been doing? Whereas now, everyone is really just trusted just to get on with what they're doing. And that's the reality of what has been happening. Everyone has just gotten on with what they're doing. And so, a lot less sort of, I guess, just micromanaging in terms of, teams and everything like that.
I've been, following the Gartner research pretty closely, and I'm sort of really interested to, and they keep kind of rechecking this, but interesting to see that senior managers are now sort of saying that the 75-80% of managers are saying they're now comfortable with this remote working scenario, and a very similar number, not quite as many, but a very similar number of employees are reflecting the same sort of sense of, hey, look, we're comfortable to carry on doing this. What do you think will be the impacts of that from a technology point of view over the next 12 to 18 months, do you think? Do you think we're going to see a significant shift and maybe even reduction in footprint by a lot of businesses in terms of their on-premise scenarios, or what do you think we are going to slip back to what it was before, that maybe this new normal has been over-exaggerated? If I check the traffic today, it's just as bad as it ever was. So I'm not convinced, people are working as remotely as they say they are.
Yeah, so it is often hard to, I think at least in terms of Auckland traffic, it's often hard to differentiate the difference between bad traffic and really bad traffic. And so, I mean, the thing is, the reality of it is right now, this, like you said, reduction in footprint, it is already happening. So organizations already are starting to reduce their office sizes. And that doesn't have anything to do with reduction of personnel, right? Obviously, there are some organizations out there that sadly have had to cut down on staff just purely from a cost point of view. But putting all of that aside, the organizations that haven't had to do that, they are reducing their office footprint, for example, so that they can, once again, cut costs. And that's a really good thing, because if you can cut costs in areas that doesn't involve reducing your employees, it means that you can still continue to grow as a business, effectively and significantly. It's something that for a lot of businesses will happen sometime in the near future as their office leases expire and they start to reassess, what they actually need in terms of an office space. For certain organizations, this sort of stuff is happening right now.
Do you think here in New Zealand, in particular, that we need to be a little bit careful that we don't get caught up in perhaps the same challenges that other parts of the world are suffering? I mean, we are a little bit unique here. We've had a unique response given the fact we are an island nation, and therefore we've been able to return to normality. Certainly, I think faster than most countries have had the luxury of. And to a large degree, New Zealanders as a whole perhaps don't have the same sort of commute challenges that some other larger cities have. And so, you start to get into some interesting discussions around social economics and whether or not some people, working from home is not that great. Some people think, this is great, I can work from home. But for some people, it's not so great. They've got small children around them, they can't focus, they've got all sorts of other distractions, and they want to be in the office. This whole remote life doesn't really work for them at all. What's been your observations from an HP point of view around that? You touched earlier on briefly around this workspace issue, and you and I've talked before about the fact that a lot of workspaces, people's home environments are just not set up very well, for that type of scenario. And what are your thoughts around that? Again, working with customers, I'm interested in your observations, I guess, more so than your opinions. What have you seen out there amongst New Zealand businesses and New Zealand customers, and what's been the sort of feedback?
I think it's going to really just be about, flexibility, right? Because, right now the workforce is incredibly diverse, right? Even just generationally, there's 4 different generations in the workforce at the moment, right? You got your boomers, you got your Gen X, you've got your millennials, you've got your Gen Z. And so, it will really be about being flexible as an organization to, cater to all, these different generations and different work styles. And so, for some end users, they will want to work 100% from home, and for others, they will want to work 100% in the office. And then for many people, it'll be about a little bit of both, right?
So from a technology point of view, just to sort of change gears a little bit, from a technology point of view, and again, in your role as a product evangelist, you get to spend a lot of time at the coalface with customers. What have been some of the areas of innovation, and what have been the sort of common trends that you've seen amongst different businesses? Bear in mind that there are some businesses that are essential workers, and there's some that are not. And during the lockdowns and ongoing, even our recent lockdown here in Auckland, for a lot of businesses, it is just business as usual. There's still things to fix. There's still pipes in the ground. These people have to go to work as they've always gone to work. Where have you seen the innovation from an HP point of view, and what have been some of the common threads there that you've observed? Yeah.
So I guess to sort of preface some of the big technological changes, I'll start by just observations and changes that we've noticed in the last 12 months, and so some of them I've already sort of briefly mentioned, so I'll just sort of gloss through them all. So the first one is the fact that the workforce is a lot more distributed at the moment, not just one location. We've obviously talked about that. The other one is that there is a massive adoption at the moment in cloud-based applications and collaboration-focused solutions. So, for example, Teams, Zoom, anything like that. There's been a massive uptake in that. And another one is that, micro-mobility is very much, a real thing at the moment. And so micro-mobility, specifically mobility within the home. That's going back once again to the fact that homes aren't necessarily designed for work use. And I mean, even just in terms of micro-mobility. Just for people listening, explain to what do you really mean by that? So it's that ability to work in multiple locations around the house, right? In terms of, say, for example, we're in lockdown. It's not just me or you who are working from home, right? There's family, there's other people who are working from home. There are kids who are now learning from home. And so there is really a little bit of a battle for home resources in terms of network bandwidth, and even just physical places to work. So sometime we might be working, if we're lucky, at a desk in the office or in the spare room or whatever that may be. And sometimes it might mean, working from the kitchen bench as well. No two homes are exactly the same, right? Even if you're in terrace apartments that are all designed the same, in terms of what's set up inside, even that is not going to be the same, right? So everything is unique there. Even just where you're working, if it's on the couch, the kitchen bench, where are your power outlets, for example? There's all of these little things to think about. So that's another thing that we've noticed. And then just all round, just the change in the responsibilities of IT teams in general, and what's changing in terms of what they're managing. Previously, most organizations, in terms of IT teams, most of them would really only have to manage a few employees who work remotely. And now that's completely flipped upside down, where, the majority of employees at some point in the last 12 months have all had to work remotely from home. And so, big shift in terms of the responsibilities of your IT department.
Do you think IT managers have approached that the right way around? I mean, my experience of the early stages of the pandemic were that it was probably that part of it went a lot better than most people thought it would, and it was probably less challenging than we thought it would. But here we are again a year later. Are there still things that haven't been achieved and should have been prioritised earlier? Security would be a good example of that. We see here at Softsource, we obviously see the numbers and we can see cybercrimes on the increase. Now, whether that's opportunistic or whether that's a result of things not being bolted down as well as they should be. What's HP's kind of thoughts around that? Are we sort of coming back to the security challenge a little bit belatedly, I guess, is the question I'm trying to ask, or is it just part of the course is just opportunistic, as I said? Yeah,
totally. So. I can completely agree with you. A lot of the sort of initial setup for getting people working remotely was really easy, and probably a lot easier than some would have thought. But that doesn't mean that it was completely seamless. And exactly what you said. The biggest concerns for most, IT teams in terms of this new sort of remote setup is security and new vulnerabilities that we have from no longer working within, the four walls of an office, specifically around, that endpoint security, that your device that you use, your notebook or a desktop or whatever you use, that's the portal into, all of your company's IP, customer information, everything. And so, so that's been the number one concern. And to be fair, there have been a good portion. It's actually about half of all your sort of IT managers have said that, no, my organization is more vulnerable now that we're working remotely. And so that was back 12 months ago, right? So since then, there's been, a lot of changes, micro changes that have been made, so that, it's not an issue quite as much. And I mean, particularly, if you're using, an HP device, even just all the security that you've got on there, specifically endpoint security, it's all there to keep you safe when you're working remotely. So, file and malware containment, and just all round, just internet security as well that uses AI as well, because particularly we've seen in the last 12 months, specifically since lockdown started, a huge increase in, for example, email-borne security threats. So particularly, I think it was, in Italy, there was a massive increase in these threats. particularly just scammers pretending to be, public health information, and then you click on a link, and then all of a sudden you got some malware on your device. So that was a huge problem that we saw at the beginning. And yeah, even just, in terms of the HP hardware, if you do open an email that has a piece of malware on it, our devices are able to contain that malware and using virtual machines anyway. So yeah, with those devices, you're kept completely safe from those sorts of threats. In terms of obviously the workforce being more distributed and not just working from one location now, mobility is what's really important there, right? So all day battery, for example, when you switch on your device at the start of the day, you want it to last all the way to the end of the day. Because if you're not at a desk, for example, with a power outlet or whatever, you don't want that to restrict you.
Yeah, I heard the goal of any device is to stay awake longer than you do. It's the ideal.
Yeah, well, that would be nice. Yeah, and actually, in fairness, fairness not so much of a challenge anymore, but especially with some of these new devices that we've got at HP as well. I think it's the EliteBook X360 1040 promises up to 29 hours of battery now. So I know I at least don't want to stay awake for longer than 29 hours. Sometimes I don't have control over it, but generally, that's what I prefer.
Totally. What about asset management? I've heard feedback from a number of organisations. They've found that pretty challenging. Particularly you touched on earlier. We talked about people picking up monitors and keyboards, and is that something that HP's observes has become a bit of a problem now because they've got all this gear now out in the field, and people picked it up in haste and left the office, and now they've got not 100% sure where everything actually is.
Yeah. So. Even just from what I said, right at the start of the podcast in terms of my own experience, at the start of lockdown, we were taking, displays and keyboards, mice, all of that sort of stuff from home. It's not just the notebooks. And because, asset tracking a laptop is generally fairly straightforward, but I think traditionally it's not the same for monitors, keyboards, mice, all that sort of stuff. But what we're seeing now, at least in terms of HP hardware, is that now asset tracking of those types of devices, you can do that now with all of these new ones. So monitors, mice, keyboards, and so just in terms of an organization, keeping track of anything from 50 of them to 1,000 of them, depending on the scale. It's now much more manageable, and so for us, the most ideal solution is via our HP Tech Pulse, which was originally the platform that was just sort of exclusive to our device as a service. Our device as a service. And so now Tech Pulse is available completely separate from the device as a service OpEx rental sort of model, and can just be used as a management platform now, just in terms of, not only tracking, where devices are, but even just tracking, the health and performance of a device. So Tech Pulse is about proactive management rather than reactive management. So say, for example, there's a device within a fleet where the hard drive is about to fail. We want to be able to tackle that before that happens, right? So for an IT department to get that notification saying, hey, the hard drive on this device is about to fail, we need to get it replaced before it actually happens, so that all of your data is fine, all of that sort of stuff. Same with battery, we can once again preemptively and proactively detect a lot of these sort of failures and everything. The actual platform itself, it's available for not just HP devices. You can use it for any Windows device, any Apple device, any Android phone, anything like that. They're all able to be worked into that platform.
Oh, that's really interesting. And certainly here at Softsource, we've noticed a reasonably significant increase in interest in remote management services, and an increase in RFPs come across our desk and that sort of thing. So I guess that in many respects reflects some of the things you're talking about, that organisations are, have they gone through the last year that's really it's challenged them, and they've worked out what they don't know and what they do know, and they've started to see where the gaps are in their service models, and I think a lot of people are revisiting that as they move forward. Well, I think we're coming near the end of time. Just in terms of just closing comments, I guess again looking the next 12 months out, what are the key? What would be something somebody could take away that they should be really thinking about from a transformation point of view? And is there anything you can tell us about, and particularly in devices you're with HPI, that is relevant to this whole sort of workplace model, the new normal as we keep calling it? What is something you could share with us this afternoon? Yeah,
well, I guess, as an organization, what you should really be thinking about is, how can we be set up to make sure that our employees are just working as efficiently and as productive as possible, right? So, if as long as your employees can stay, constantly connected, regardless of where they are, then they should be fine. And I think I even saw when I was walking up into your guys' office before, I saw that your promise on the wall, and it was about making life easier for the customer, and so that they can be as productive and efficient as possible. I'm slightly paraphrasing, but
no, you almost got it bang on. I'm pretty impressed.
And of course, I mean, HP's motto as well is it's simply to make life better through technology. And so in terms of even just Softsource and HP as a partnership, our values and views are very much aligned, are very much customer focused. And I think if you're set up as an organization so that you can do that, so that you can be as productive as possible, that's great. So look at what the obstacles are currently. What is preventing you from doing that? Is it technological? Is it cultural? And just work on changing them. Obviously, if it is hardware based, if it is technological, then we're able to help you because in terms of even just our devices, we've got the security to keep you up and running when you are at home, and we've got all the collaboration features as well. I didn't touch on it much before, but, in terms of that uptake in, collaboration-based applications, the hardware that you're using needs to be aligned with that as well. So even just from HP, you're going to see devices with more powerful webcams, better audio, all of that sort of stuff for video conferencing. But even just AI-based technology that's going to better tune your audio, better change even things like thermal management of your device, all of those little things. That's what we're focusing on, just to make it as seamless as possible for the customer.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Lifting the Lid on Technology. Please join us for our next episode as we continue to explore opportunities and challenges in the world of IT.